It's all about wide receivers here on a Wednesday on Locked On NFL with James and Tony.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up? I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the co-host of Locked On NFL, along with my other co-host, James Rapien, here on a Wednesday. Welcome to another edition of Locked On NFL with your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Quick reminder that we are free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. Make sure you lock in, tap in, hit that bell so you get all of the notifications, and make sure you subscribe as well. And also, thank you to our everydayers for taking a listen. We appreciate you. Without you, there would not be no us. Also, wherever you get your audio podcast, make sure you tap in so you don't miss an episode Monday through Friday of Locked On NFL. James, what's going on, man?
What's up, Tone? How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm trying to soak up the last few weeks we have before camp takes off, and it's an 8-month stretch essentially. So yeah, I'm excited though. It's obviously a good problem to have, but we're gonna start with a familiar topic, and it's one you came up with, the one that I've talked about a lot on Locked On Bengals, and it's that Chiefs-Bengals rivalry.
Yeah.
You mentioned wide receiver talk. Jamar Chase did
Yeah.
have something to say about Patty Mahomes.
He did. He said, Pat who? And while I do now, let me set this up, right? So I guess he's on the podcast with the Kelce brothers, okay? And they're going at it, and there have been some talk about who was number one, and Mahomes was number one on everybody. So we went through it. We said it's got to be until it isn't, right?
Sure.
And even Joe Burrow said, well, he's the guy right now until you beat him or whatever, paraphrasing it. Well, Jamar Chase goes on this and does what he's supposed to do. He takes up for his quarterback. He says Joe Burrow is the best. Now, let me stop right there, because I actually said that by the end of the year, Joe Burrow will be number one on my list, right?
You did. Yes,
And
you did.
I thought they beat the Chiefs 2 out of 3 times or something like that. He was the only one that seemed to crack that code, especially on the road when they were headed to the Super Bowl.
3 out of 4.
3 out of 4. There you go. Correct me, James. 3 out of 4. So the thing is, man, is he appeared to be on his way. If they win that game last year, there would be no doubt people would be saying he's better. That's just the way it is. So Jamar Chase, defending his quarterback, says Patrick who when he was pushed about whether Mahomes was better than Joe Burrow. Well, is it going too far a little? Is it disrespectful, as Travis Kelce says you can't disrespect Patrick like that? A little. But guess what? When you're talking smack, there are no rules. You can't tell nobody what to say. I've been a barber for 30 some odd years, and I've been in barbershops for 45. And before that, I was in the military. And you know what happens when dudes start talking smack? They say ridiculous stuff. And none of it takes on a life of its own. It's supposed to be as outlandish. Nobody ranks or Jones, and then all of a sudden they're going to be nice about it and tell truths. No, you have to tell outrageous stuff and say outrageous things for it to happen. So the only one that comes out of this looking a little bit sensitive, even though he was right, is Travis Kelce.
Patrick Mahomes' response was perfect.
Wasn't it?
That's who. And he can talk. You know why? Because he does have 2 Super Bowl MVPs and 2 rings and MVP trophies and all of those things. And yet at the same time, Jamar Chase isn't wrong. He should back his quarterback like that.
Damn right he should. He won a national championship with the dude, and they threw 185 touchdown passes. Come on.
And then if he had another half a second to throw in Super Bowl 56, which there was 2 guys on that line, and the guy that got beat never played another down in the NFL, Quentin Spain. And I get it's Aaron Donald, but 2 guys on that line the Bengals had in Super Bowl 56, their offensive line, never played another snap in the NFL. Trey Hopkins, Quentin Spain. Those are the 2 guys Aaron Donald was whooping in that second half when the Bengals offense couldn't do anything. And so it's not Burrow's fault. It's not Chase's fault. These guys, they're supremely confident. And guess what? If I gave Joe Burrow truth serum, you know what he would say?
Me.
Jamar Chase is better than Travis Kelce.
He sure
That's
would.
what he would say. Now, he wouldn't say it on record because quarterbacks are they have a little more they carry themselves a certain way, right? He's not going to say,
right.
"Oh, Travis who." Receivers do that. So I don't blame Jamar. I don't blame Joe for saying Mahomes. I don't blame Mahomes for his response or Travis for backing his guy. And you know what this is, Tony? This is the NFL's best rivalry. This is exactly what the NFL needs because it's not just two rivals because there's bad blood. They're the two best teams in the AFC, and they have been for the past 2 seasons. They're the two best quarterbacks, arguably, in the NFL, and I would say that they are. And you have a future Hall of Fame tight end, a guy in Jamar Chase who's off to outside of Justin Jefferson and would have been even ahead of Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, and was as a rookie, but he got hurt last year and missed a few games. Like, these guys, they're studs. And so I love that there's some trash talk, and I think it's great for the NFL. And I think it's going to make that New Year's Eve game that much more fun because it's Bengals, Chiefs in Arrowhead, New Year's Eve. I hope, I'm wishing right now in July or in June, not even July yet, not even training camp month, that the number 1 seed in the conference is on the line. I know that's bad for your Jags if that's the case, but if the winner of that game gets the number 1 seed in a bye, well, can you imagine the fireworks, the drama, all the trash talk leading up to that game? It's exactly what I want. I hope it happens, Tone, because it would make this rivalry, because to me, it's easily the best rivalry in the NFL, but it would even cement it even more and take it to new heights.
I agree with you. I think it would take it to new heights. And I know earlier I said, had they won that game last year in the playoffs, and folks kind of probably going, well, if my auntie had a mustache, she'd be my uncle. Like if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk, right? All of this, all the if things that people say. But you know how close they were? That was a bad penalty, man. The young kid
just Osai.
Yeah, that was horrible. But I understand the adrenaline. No, well, actually, I don't understand the adrenaline because I never played in the NFL. I don't understand the moment, but I can understand me not understanding the moment why he would do that, right? Because he just, at the same time, though, it's just this awareness. It wasn't like Burrow made a mistake. What it was they had him and let him off the hook. And that's the part. I sound like Dennis Green, but still, that's the thing about this is how close they were. This almost parallels, and it's not an exact representative of what I'm about to say, but do you remember when Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick at some point? And Peyton Manning was he was Trevor Lawrence before Trevor Lawrence, the generational talent and all of this stuff. And they ended up going back and forth until the Patriots started winning, like consistently beating. They were the reason why the Colts didn't get more love and didn't get more than one. It was all about Manning, and then all of a sudden it switches, and no one can go back in retrospect. Like if you're just looking at history books and you weren't there, you don't really understand that. No, Peyton Manning was supposed to be better than everybody, and Tom Brady took his lunch money. As good as Peyton Manning is, top 3 of all time, there's no question who the GOAT is. But it didn't start that way. And I think we may be headed towards that right now. Like Mahomes has this quick start, but I don't know if he's going to keep it. I think Burrow has a shot over the next 5 or 6 years to stake claim to the fact that he is the best quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's open, and that's going to be the fun part is does it become a Burrow Mahomes 1-2? Does Josh Allen get in the mix? And I think some have Allen too still. Is there another quarterback on the horizon, a Trevor Lawrence or someone like that, Lamar Jackson, or someone that isn't even in the league yet?
Those 2 kids coming next year is supposed to be those guys.
That's right. Caleb Williams certainly could be in the mix. But does that happen? And that's the fun part, is because we could be looking at Brady Manning, but there was also a Drew Brees in there. There were also, Phil Rivers. Like what guys get in that?
Matt Ryan won MVP in there.
Eli Manning. People are going to crush us for waiting on Eli Manning. I think he's in that same tier of those guys. Actually, maybe not Matt Ryan because he wouldn't have blown a 28-3 lead. But
I'll give you another example.
Oh,
Big Ben. Big Ben's in there. Big Ben has 2.
he does. Oh.
So, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer with a bullet, and everybody knows it. So he's another guy who snuck in there. So I think we're in good shape, even with the 3 guys that they drafted this year. If they have team success, that's all people are going to look at. It's the team success that go along with these quarterbacks.
Up next, we talked a little about wide receiver there with Jamar Chase. Let's dive into it with a receiver that's hoping to rebound. Deebo Samuel, will he rebound next season? We'll dive into that next right here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is a one-stop shop for all things sports wagering, and with baseball season in full swing, there's no better place to get in all of the action at America's #1 sports book. Right now at FanDuel, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. It's $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to join today. And whether it's baseball, whether you want to look at some NBA futures with the Golden State Warriors shocking a lot of people, adding CP3, or maybe it's NFL futures because you think you know who's going to win the AFC. Maybe you don't think it's going to be the Chiefs or the Bengals. You can wager on all of those things and so much more at FanDuel.com. So don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. It's FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Right back at you here on Locked On NFL on a Wednesday. James Rapien and Tony Wiggins here. Look, we talked about the Chiefs-Pats rivalry and the wide receivers chirping. Jamar Chase, who I'm going to go out on a limb right now, and I think he's the best wide receiver in the NFL, and I know I'm probably in the minority in that, but that's okay. Another receiver that I was extremely high on when he came out of college, and I was begging anybody in these parts to draft him. In fact, at pick 36 in that draft, I believe it was pick 36. Jawan
That's
Taylor
when he was picked. He was picked at 36.
He was. Okay, Jawan Taylor was picked at 35 then. The Jaguars, I believe.
He was.
Oh! He was picked right ahead of it. I know. See, I knew it happened because I remember when it happened. I was sitting there screaming. I was sitting there begging. And I love Jawan Taylor. Everybody knows that. And he just got a $20 million deal. But the only problem is 4 years and he's out. He's not even a Jaguar right now. So I'm sitting there looking at, I was begging anybody to take Deebo Samuel. I saw him light Clemson up, right? And then he came into the league and he took it by storm. And then some injury concerns with his feet and all of these stuff and health concerns. And then what is he? Is he this? Is he that? I tell you what he is. He's a football player. He is cut from the mold of Hines Ward. He is cut from the mold of Anquan Bolden. He is just the dude that if you were out here doing jumping jacks, you would pick him first. If you were playing kickball, you would pick him first. That's just what he is. But how tangible is that on a week-to-week basis when you don't have a quarterback in San Francisco consistently? And then what does it mean in the long term if he's not able to overcome those injuries and bounce back? Is he good enough on all of the other little things to still make himself a very, very reliable player? I think yes. I think a guy that does some of the things that Deebo does is always going to be good. But, James, there's still a question on whether or not he can be healthy enough this year to really earn the money and earn that moniker Deebo that comes along with his name.
He needs to show that he can be consistent. And, there have been plenty of guys that have had a year, and shown it for a year. And he was dominant, right? 1,400 plus receiving yards, 18 yards a catch, 8 rushing touchdowns, over 360 yards rushing, 6 more receiving touchdowns. I mean, think about that. How many players, wide receivers, run for 8 touchdowns and have 1,400 yards receiving? Like, he's a weapon. But his yards per catch last year dropped by nearly 7 yards. His yards per target dropped by nearly 5 yards. The yards per attempt rushing wise dropped significantly, almost a yard. All of these things went down. And so to me, I need to see a little bit more from Deebo because it's really right now he's a 1-year wonder. Whether that's fair or not, that's what the stats say. So let's say he never gets back to that level again. Right. We will think of Deebo Samuel as a 1-year wonder. So can you do that with your questions at quarterback, whether it is Brock Purdy, assuming he can get healthy. And look, I heard he was going down to your neck of the woods to work on his shoulder. So we'll see if he can get that done. But yeah, I think overall, Deebo Samuel, super talented and a really good scheme for him. Now you got to prove it starting this year. And when I mean consistency, I don't mean just this year. I mean, do them back-to-back years, multiple years. And if you do that in 2022 is just kind of the year where you dealt with some injuries and you showed you could stay healthy in 21, 23, 24, 25, then he will be one of the NFL's best because he's such a weapon. You're right. And he's so dynamic and he can do so many different things on offense. And he's in a really good situation overall. There is that quarterback question mark, but if anyone can overcome it, it's Kyle Shanahan.
He won't ever statistically, in my opinion, get back to that. And the reason why is because they continue to add more and more weapons.
McCaffrey changes
McCaffrey.
it. Yep.
He changes everything, right? Brandon Ayuk, his ability to step forward. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep him after this year because of their salary structure, but I'm not doubting that they'll find a way. He's a really, really good player. And, of course, you have George Kittle, who's one of the top 5 tight ends in the NFL, who they used more last year after seeming like they forgot about him at some point the year before. Here's what's going to happen with Deebo. Even if he doesn't get back statistically to those days because of just opportunity, if he stays healthy and they happen to win and they can keep their quarterback healthy, then he'll be an 800-yard receiver, a 300-yard rusher, a guy that gets into the end zone 8 to 10 times during the regular season, but he'll make plays in the postseason that will make people – he'll make your jaw drop. He'll make people miss. He's very, very hard to tackle. He turns into a running back once he catches the ball. And I think guys like that on good teams seem to – and I'm going to use an example of a player at a different position, Jim McMahon. If you look at Jim McMahon's stats from back in the 85 Bears, his statistics weren't that great, but it was the character of who he was. And it was the winning and the dominance and the fact that he was able to make plays while everybody else was making plays. I think he'll be looked at differently. The 1,400-yard season and all of those rushing touchdowns suggested that he had a ceiling that was really high and was like going to be one of the best wide receivers in the league. I think what he is a guy they have him in basketball. Guys like Jamal Crawford that will put 30 on you, but he's not going to anybody's Hall of Fame probably. But guys in the league respect him because he'll whoop you on any given night. He'll put it on you, right? I think that's what Deebo is. I don't know if he'll ever go to the Hall of Fame, but I don't think he will because of the numbers. But what I do think is he'll be that dude that everybody in the league knows can really, really play, especially if the 49ers keep pressing the line of the Super Bowl and deep playoff runs. Then he'll be viewed just fine, in my opinion.
Let's play a game real quick. You like games. I like games. Wide receiver draft. Stop me when you would take Deebo over a wide receiver. I'm just going to name some of the top guys. You already said Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Jalen Waddle, or Amari Cooper.
No, I would take Deebo over Amari.
Okay. What about
Waddle? I would take Waddle over Amari too, but I would not take Deebo over Jalen Waddle. No.
Would you take Deebo over CeeDee Lamb?
No.
T. Higgins?
No.
Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Yes.
Terry McLaurin?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know about that one.
It's close though because McLaurin has probably been the benefactor of not too great quarterback play, so we haven't really seen
DK Metcalf.
Yes.
Oh,
all right. Talk about one-trick pony. You looking at one-trick pony in my opinion with DK. He doesn't dominate like T.O. I thought he was going to be T.O. after that first.
T.O. doesn't grow on trees or in weight rooms. T.O.'s a freak. Deontay Johnson.
Yes.
Christian Kirk.
What are you trying to do? Get me hurt?
Yeah, I'm trying to get you in trouble, man. Christian Kirk.
I would not take him ahead of Calvin Ridley. How about that?
What? Whoa, what?
I would take Calvin Ridley over Deebo. But I would not take Christian Kirk over Deebo. Yeah, I take
Garrett
Calvin
Wilson.
Ridley.
Garrett Wilson.
Ooh. I take Deebo.
All right. I was just curious where it was. I love how you had to name a Jag. All right. You
because we forget Calvin.
You must
Ridley's
be out of your Calvin Ridley.
Ridley's the number one receiver around here. Ridley had 1,400 yards too on a bad foot a couple of years ago. Now, don't forget that. I would take him because of the route tree and the deep speed. I'm a speed guy. But the reason why I like Deebo Samuel, man, is he's almost like, it's almost nostalgic because he's a throwback. He's a football player. Depending on what team I have too. Like, I'll give you a perfect team. If I'm Baltimore, I want Deebo Samuel. He's a Baltimore Raven type dude. That's what he is.
Yeah.
So, it depends.
Instead of getting wide receivers that are as tall as me, they should have tried to swing a trade for Deebo. That's what you're trying to say.
That's it. That's exactly what I'm telling you.
By the way, Calvin Ridley, the difference and the reason, I'll just back up your argument.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency. 800 plus yards his first 2 years, then explodes for 1,300 plus. I'm not going to debate you on it because you could say, oh, he missed a year. Well, yeah, Deebo Samuel's missed a year of games since he got into the league. So
in those 3 years when Calvin had the 800 yards, guess who was on the other side?
Yeah.
Julio.
Yeah. No, I got you. Up next, and a guy I want to name. Would you take Christian Watson over Deebo? I'll ask you that next right here on Locked On NFL. All right, Tone. Yep. Christian Watson. We're going to get to him in a second, but would you take him over Deebo Samuel? It's kind of close.
No, I wouldn't, but it's close, man,
close.
because I am high on that kid. I was high on him. I saw him at the Senior Bowl when Locked On invaded Mobile, right? He was the best wide receiver there. And I told any and everybody at that time the Jaguars needed a receiver. I said, hey, man, Christian Watson's going to be good. And Peter Bukowski was going through it at the time because they hadn't gotten Aaron Rodgers all of these weapons, right? Peter Bukowski, by the way, of Locked On Green Bay Packers, Locked On Packers, and of course, Locked On Sports Today. The thing is that kid has an enormous amount of upside. I mean, he has like Mike Evans size, but he's like one of the 7 or 8 fastest wide receivers in the NFL. I mean, and he came into his own last year, man. He really, really did. Cost me my fantasy championship when he hurt himself after a 10-yard pass, and all I needed him to do was catch one more pass. But still, he is a for real deal. The question I have about him is this. Is he going to be the one that either benefits from? Now watch this. If he plays well, folks are going to be like, Aaron who? Because that means that kid is playing well, right? But if that kid doesn't play well, is this going to be another situation where we're looking at saying, see what happens when you get rid of a Hall of Fame quarterback and you bring a guy that's just okay in there? He's hurting this dude's career, right? So I think he's a fantastic player. I also think that his play is going to be indicative, or is going to represent how we feel about Jordan Love replacing Aaron Rodgers.
I actually think that's a good point. And if he is that good, it won't matter. He'll put up numbers. I'll give you an example. Garrett Wilson last year, 83 receptions, 1,103 yards, 4 touchdowns. Who was throwing him the ball?
Yeah.
Who was throwing him the ball? I mean,
the dude that they didn't want, right?
Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White. I mean, it was crazy. You went from Flight White to Zach Wilson for a week, and you had Joe Flacco and Jets fans booing Flacco. I mean, it was crazy. Right? They wish, right? I mean, they wish that was the case. And so even if Jordan Love stinks, even if he stinks, if Christian Watson's the real deal, he should put up numbers in that offense.
He should.
Because he's going to be the guy. And that's the interesting part of this is in this day and age, in this league, you did the basketball reference. Plenty of guys put up, good stats, bad team guys, but put up big numbers on bad teams.
Yep.
Christian Watson, if he's the real deal, will put up big numbers this year, even if the Packers offense isn't necessarily good, or even if Jordan Love leaves something to be desired. And so I think it's interesting. I would take Deebo ahead of Watson. By the way, I'm all for proven commodities in the NFL, and I think he's more proven. But Watson is interesting, man. You talk about a guy 6'4", runs a 4.28. I mean, I just think about what he would look like in certain offenses that I've seen, the teams we started with, right? Can you imagine that guy with Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow?
No, it'd be a cheat code, or with a younger Aaron Rodgers. right? Without
Oh.
hand injuries. It'd be ridiculous, man. So
Trevor Lawrence.
oh, it's I can't even it'd be ridiculous. It'd be
Who would you
absolutely-
take? Who would you take? Christian Kirk or Christian Watson?
Oh man, why are you trying to get me?
I'm
You
trying
know
to
what?
get you.
I'm gonna tell
I'm
you. I'm
admitting
gonna
it.
take the dude that's already here. You know why? Because I ain't got time for my mentions to be lit up. I'll tell you off it. No, you know what? Honestly, let's just say I'm putting on this personnel hat, right?
Yeah. You
I
take
take
Christian Watson.
I take Watson. Bigger, faster, catch radius.
Cheaper.
You can't outthrow him. Cheaper. All of that stuff. All of that. That's the guy.
I agree. Oh no, I agree with you. And that's no knock on Christian Kirk, by the way. He played well last year.
Let me
and
ask
he
you this.
delivered on that contract. Yeah.
Would you take him over T. Higgins? Christian Watson?
Come on now.
What?
Different class. Right now, it's a different class. T is like we were talking about, like Ridley, 1,300 plus yards. Like T could do that. He just has Jamar Chase. Like Jamar Chase is on the offense as well. Like T's a freak, man. So yeah, I would take T. Higgins.
I love the fact that we talked about these receivers today. Go ahead, make that point you were about to make.
I saw AJ Green up close and personal, and T isn't AJ, but I mean he's got some characteristics that are better than AJ because he's, to me, I think, and he's not even in his full prime yet, but he's going to be able to high point the ball at a way, and he's already doing that. It's 80-20 ball. It's not 50-50. T. Higgins, this is, that AJ could never do, and that we've seen very few guys do, like Calvin Johnson style, like close to that. I'm not saying he's Calvin. I'm not. But T. Higgins is strong, man, and he's strong at the catch point. AJ Green was very strong, but talk about rise up, man. I think T. Higgins in a contested catch situation with guys draped on him. Not that AJ couldn't do that. See, now people are thinking I'm knocking AJ.
No.
I think T might be better in that area. I just think AJ's a little more athletic, a little more fluid. But T. Higgins, close to that. And if you're close to that, I'm taking you over Christian Watson. That doesn't mean it won't change, but as of now.
All right, so let me end this wide receiver question with this, or this segment with this.
Yeah.
Who's the best Bengals wide receiver in the last 30 years?
30? Well, right now it's Chad.
Okay.
Right now it's Chad. There's a very real chance that changes from Chad to Jamar. But if I had to rank him, it would be Chad, AJ, Carl Pickens, Jamar, as of today. But see, Jamar, you could already vault him past a lot of those guys because he already two huge seasons, best season in history. So I would probably put him behind AJ ahead of Carl. Carl was a little bit of a headache. Balled out though.
Confession, Jamar Chase was my favorite receiver in the draft since Randy Moss.
Hey,
he was. He was. I saw the kid dominate as a true sophomore. He sat out an entire year, didn't catch anything in the preseason, faced all of that scrutiny, and then goes out there in the first game and blows by a corner and catches a pass and just throws it up like, yeah, okay, whatever. He's just got the it factor, man. He does. And I was talking to, I can't remember who the analyst was I was talking to. It may have been John Levy. We were trying to come up with a comp for Jamar Chase. We started the show talking about Jamar Chase, and we're ending it talking about Chase. And we're talking on the field. He said Antonio Brown, and I agree with him. And you know why? Because there's something that happens when that ball gets in the air. He could be side by side with a receiver, and he doesn't even look like he's running fast. But then he had a play against the Chiefs a couple of years ago. I think it was the Chiefs, either the Chiefs or the Ravens, where he split the defense and he was running. Yeah. And my son said he's not even running fast. I said, you don't even think he's running fast? Look at the guys chasing him. Those dudes look like they were about to kill themselves trying and pull every hamstring they had trying to chase him. And they looked like they were running fast. He looked like he was running slow and he was pulling away from him. He is a powerful, powerful human being who falls into that category with Deebo. Don't care if you're gonna go ahead and play pickleball, you probably want to pick him first because that's just the kind of guy he is.
I agree with you 100%, and we'll see. But no, I think he's certainly on pace to be that number one guy, and we'll see if it happens. And he gets to that range. Chad, I'm kind of biased too because Chad was the guy I watched growing up. He's still open in my book. He's Tony Wiggins. I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for listening to a Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL. Hit that subscribe button. ring the bell on YouTube, and make sure you follow wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, thank you so much for watching and listening to Locked On NFL.